We're going to be talking about the strike they made on Yemen. The IDF completed a very complex set of airstrikes, multiple aircraft, multiple targets. We're going to break down all of that and talk about why now, why it's important, and how it will continue to affect this war. I've been saying that Israel was probably about to attack Yemen. They've been making preparations. Everybody could see they were making preparations, and they knew something was coming. And Yemen was really one of the only targets left because they pretty much wiped out Hezbollah in the north, and they're doing a good job with Hamas in the south. Iran is still licking its wounds from the last time they struck. So we kind of figured that Israel was going to strike Yemen, and it turned out it was a larger strike than I thought it would be, because I keep saying, there's just not that much to hit in Yemen. I mean, it is a big dirt parking lot. It's a bunch of camel jockeys, towel-headed whack jobs running around throwing rocks at each other. And they've been given some very expensive toys by the Iranians to shoot at, and they shoot at pretty much anybody. They've not only shot them at Israel, they shot them at Saudi Arabia, they shoot them at every ship that goes by, no matter what they're carrying or who they're allied with. And they've been getting a little help in that regard on who to target by Russian, not mercenaries, but actual advisors that come out of the Russian military. And Iran has had a ship that's been floating off the shore there that's giving them targeting data. And we know this. We've known it for a long time. Why we have not sunk that ship is completely beyond me. But I want to point out also the ship, if you recall, over a year ago, Yemen attacked a cargo ship. It was the first ship they took over. They landed on the ship, they took it over, and they took it into port of Hodeida, and they've been holding it there ever since. Now, the crewmen, there's 25 crew, they've been holding hostage now for a year. And those guys didn't do anything. They have nothing to do with Israel. They're not Israeli. And yet they've been held hostage now for more than a year in this great resort town of Al Hodeida. So Hodeida got struck again last night. Now, we've got some very good footage of the strike, but unfortunately I can't show it to you, or this video will get demonetized. And so we're not going to show that to you. We did put it up over at chuckholton.com. You can go over and watch it there. What they were striking at in Hodeida is they sunk every tugboat that they had at the port. So they can't even move any ships in and out of the port now. And they struck the oil storage facilities because they hadn't taken all of them out the last time. This means that the port in Hodeida is now completely out of commission. Actually, all of their ports are out of commission. There's no place in Houthi-held territory where they can bring in supplies anymore by sea. And obviously, this makes life harder for the Yemenis who live there. Their lives are already hard enough. They've been facing famine since 2014. There is a port. The Houthis don't control all of Yemen, just the most important parts. The Israelis last night hit the capital city of Sana'a. They took out some command and control centers, air defense, and storage facilities that held weapons. So this strike was maybe as close as they've come to going all in on taking out the Houthis. They're not going to be able to take out the Houthis with just missiles, however, because the Houthis are large. They have a tremendous number of people, tens of thousands, most likely, who follow them. Now, let's talk about the impact that this has had on everybody. First of all, the amount of shipping that's had to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope is over $1 trillion. And like I said, that just raises the costs. It's cost the world about $200 billion, I think is the number that I saw, in additional shipping costs. The ships now have to have more insurance. It's just a longer, more arduous journey, more fuel, et cetera, to get anything anywhere. As the United States pulls back from the world's sea lanes, because it's really been the US that for the last 50 years has guaranteed safety on the high seas. Those giant cargo ships are just gigantic targets for every pirate and terrorist that has a rowboat or a speedboat out there. And the only thing that's kept those guys from victimizing these cargo ships in most places around the world for the last 50 years has been the strength of the US military, which has guaranteed that safety. And that is declining. The United States Navy has dropped in half in the number of ships that can actually sail. The United States Navy sailors fail their sea trials when they're supposed to qualify to be able to run their ships. A lot of U.S. ships have been turned into rust buckets. You can see them if you go to the port there. You can see ships with rust streaking down the sides. Those are American naval ships. And so the United States really is unable to guarantee safety on the high seas anymore. I mean, just look at Yemen as a perfect example. We've had a couple of battle groups right off the coast of Yemen trying to safeguard ships going through the Bab el-Mandab Straits, and we've been unable to effectively safeguard those ships. There've been a ton of ships struck with drones, sea drones, and missiles, and even had ships taken over. We've had several ships sunk out there because the United States is unable to protect them with the great force of our military might. We still have the greatest Navy on planet Earth. It's just not great enough to guarantee safety of the shipping around the world. So what does it cost us? We are seeing an increase in cost of goods shipped in from overseas. So if I want a new lens for my Sony camera, it's going to cost me maybe $25 to $50 more than it would have before the war started. But that largely has been offset by the decline in the price of oil. We're not feeling it quite as much right now. If the price of oil goes back up, we would feel it a lot more. But it is actually having an effect on us. We just don't notice it so much because of the other factors involved. However, Saudi Arabia is not only feeling it in the price of oil because that's their major export, but it's hard for them to get product into their country because of the shipping being cut off through the Bab el-Mandab Straits. The port in Eilat is completely shut down, and that is costing Israel quite a bit. The port actually went bankrupt, and they're just closed down. Most of what came out of that port was agricultural stuff and minerals from mines in Israel that has cost Israel, I would say, in the hundreds of millions. But now let's look at what it's cost Yemen themselves. The Yemeni economy has dropped by like 50% because of the closure of the seas around their country. So you've had this massive hit to Yemen's economy. It's also struck at the economy of Sudan. It's struck at the economy of Egypt. Egypt gets 50% of its revenues for its government from the Suez Canal, and that's dropped to zero now. So Yemen has actually hurt Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Jordan a whole lot more than they've hurt Israel or the United States. This is how these things work. This is God answering our prayers to thwart the plans of evil men. If you don't count all of the strikes that have been made on Yemen by the United States, the UK, Spain, France, and Israel, just the economic hit alone to Yemen is absolutely off the charts. It's cost them so much, and yet they have a massive rally once a week on Saturdays to protest the war against Gaza. Maybe it's because they just wish they were Gaza. Even with all the destruction in Gaza, you wonder if Gazans aren't better off because they're going to get a lot more aid. It's incredible to see the Yemenis making ridiculous music videos about the ships that they've conquered, that they've captured, as if it's a victory for them. But yeah, you morons, you dropped your country's economy by 50%. Like, that's not a victory. That's called losing. They just do it so well. I guess, you've got to do something well. And yelling into the void is a skill, I guess. It's mind blowing that the whole world, the whole civilized world, has got to be just face bombing. Like, oh my gosh, these people! They have fired hundreds of millions of dollars worth of drones and missiles at Israel. They say over 200 missiles and 170 drones, and like a dozen of them have actually crossed into Israeli airspace. So far, they've managed to kill exactly one Israeli. In an entire year of attacking Israel on a daily basis, they've killed one Israeli and dropped their country's economy by 50%. Congratulations. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast if you want to get notified when we're going to go live so that you can interact with us here. We thank you very much for all of you, and we'll see you again next time on the Hot Zone.